Okay. So I hope you guys had time to take a look at them, right? Uh, uh, so the first one is passports, right? Passports. I asked everyone whether you have passports and whether you have sent us the a copy, because the TSA, transportation security, whatever the people who are in charge of the security, they are asking for all sorts of details, even the date, the passport was issued and stuff like that. So the travel agent is asking for all this information. So it's much easier. We'll just copy them and send them in, like put in a matrix or something like that. The other thing that I want is the permission to enroll statement. That form. Jaron, did you send? And we didn't. You just filled out. Okay. Chloe, did you give one?
I'm doing that.
You doing that right now?
No, not right now.
Did you bring some forms?
No.
Okay.
I got the.
Chloe need one.
I got the.
Oh,
slip,
super.
The first one.
Okay. You need to fill one before you leave today, okay?
Okay.
I don't think I'm going to let you leave today without filling one. Okay. Tad, did you fill one?
I don't remember, so probably not.
Okay, so you want to give one to Ted? Kevin?
Yeah.
You filled one out?
No, I haven't.
Okay, good. You asked,
Yes.
yeah. You must have a passport. You have traveled.
Yes.
Okay. You haven't sent us a copy of that.
I'll email you that right now.
Okay. Catherine gave the permission thing. You need to check with Marina for all these things. Eric hasn't given. Xiaofei hasn't. You want to fill one of these?
Oh, okay.
You what? No. One of these forms. Did you fill one of these forms? This form?
No.
Why don't you fill one? Okay. And Maya needs to fill all of these. Okay. And the other one is, I need some checks right now also. I haven't bothered you for a long time, so I think I'm going to bother you and collect the checks. So if you haven't given, I don't want to start, calling names. I mean, mentioning your names, mentioning the names of people who haven't sort of like given the check. But I need the checks. I need, the next check is due next week, so we need to keep going. And as I said, things are moving fast. The other thing is, I sent you a itinerary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you manage to take a look at that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If there's any issues like about your name, that's the most important thing. If your name is not correct, then you are in real trouble. And we are in trouble. So please check the name, and also the port of departure and arrival, which is also important. When people issue that many tickets, sometimes reservations, sometimes they make little mistakes, because I say, like, this person goes from BWI, this person leaves from Cincinnati, this person leaves from Indianapolis, this person leaves from Chicago. So we are also leaving from different places. So so please check, because I sent you the general itinerary so that you have something to compare against. Okay. Let me see. Where is this coming from? Hello? Hello? Maybe I need to give a call. Why don't you call, talk to Hikoya? And tell her where it is. Okay, so please check that. And we also encourage you to travel when you're there. You're spending some money, why not take some advantage of that? So you will have friends, if you don't have any right now. I mean, you will get to know a lot of people there because we are working with SEP students who will be speaking in good English, and so on, in their own English, of course. And then we'll be working with students in Nepal. I mean, you will get to know a lot of people. And you probably want to kind of like visit some of these places. So, okay, I think somebody connected. So, so you might want to kind of like see how long you're going to, if you want to stay for a little longer, that's fine. The return ticket can be changed. So we can do it also a little later. Like if you want to break your journey in Kuala Lumpur and go somewhere and come back and catch the flight, like the same flight back, or if you want to break your journey in, say, Singapore or something like that. So sometimes the breaking the journey might also add to the cost a little bit, because there are some things called airport taxes that are also included in the ticket. So if you don't stop at a particular point, there will be no airport tax. If you stop there, then there will be an airport tax, right? So the ticket won't change, but taxes and so on. So we might want to sort of like check that out as well. So just let me know where you want to stop and so on. No hurry for this. If you're just going and if everything is fine. Any questions that you have about organizational stuff?
Hi, Nihal.
Yeah. Hi. Is it Eric?
Yeah, I didn't know if you could hear me because I just dialed in.
Okay, sure. Hi.
Do you have more information on like what our projects are going to be there, or is that still being worked out? Exactly what we're going to be working on, or what?
Yeah, we are going to discuss today the first project.
Okay.
Thanks. Huh?
The classes that we sign up for, are those the ones that you sent out? The ones you sent out yesterday are the ones that we actually sign up for?
Yeah. Here's how the curriculum works. I mean, I sent out this curriculum because there are field trips where they list various things. You get credit for photography and whatever. But I have decided, like when I developed Cap Asia, we are going to focus on South Asia. There's no point in kind of like, I'm not going to teach something very weird like planning law or something like that on the fly. There's no point because you can study it here. But it's more important for us to focus our attention on this particular place. Is it okay? Okay. So basically, the curriculum is, for undergrads, there's a history class, a theory class, practice class, and a studio, right? And for grads, history theory, one class, and an independent study, and a studio, right? So what history means is pretty much like the context. You need to know the context where we are, right? So history is a part of the context, but history is not the whole context. So that's that part. And then you need to have tools to understand the place, theoretical tools. For example, what is the meaning of development, or how has it been debated? Issues of gender, and I'll talk to you about a module on religion actually that we're going to do. So we cannot study everything about this place. So we will select a few things that we're going to study, right? Which are going to be very important for our project, because at the end, I want to keep this a little loose, like I don't, it's not like teaching for example, a Photoshop class. At the end of the Photoshop class, you will know how to do A, B, and C, right? But I also want to leave like, what if we begin to see something different? I mean, I'll show you what new things that we actually came across when we were doing these projects in Sri Lanka last year. So in some ways we will be discussing these things and we will be applying, and it's not like here's a theory we apply, this is totally correct. No, when we apply, you will begin to see how it doesn't work also, right? So then there's a dialogue between theory and practice in both ways, right? Which theories to apply, how do you theorize the situation, and so on. So that is how this organization, that's how it's organized. And then in the history theory classes, we will be will be reading based basically, and we will be discussing, and we will give you a CD, which is a reader, right? Nowadays we don't have to carry huge books; we'll carry a CD. Sanjeevani will. I have quite a bit of things already scanned. Sanjeevani will scan the rest, and we will have that. Okay. So what happens is, if you can imagine a matrix, like you have a, say, I'll take the undergraduate curriculum for that matter. You have a history class, a theory class, a practice class, and a studio. Then if you put like a matrix, you say planning students are eligible to sign up for A, B, C, and D, right? So you need to sign up for a catalog class to get credits, because this Capesha class is not in the books, and nobody will give you credit for that, right? Except for me. So that's what I sent. So if you have any issues, like for example, you need a particular class, you need to have a particular studio, and this needs to be listed. Can I get credit for this particular studio, for the Capesha studio? Please feel free to ask and have this dialogue. Then I will see whether the department, the particular department, is interested in listing that. Now, every department has. The teachers or the departments are okay with listing some classes, right? Electives and so on. Like for example, sometimes I've given credit for like theory of urban design, for the theory class. It's not really theory of urban design, but they can say, okay, you can give credit for this class, and stuff like that. But again, I cannot give credits for like a transportation planning class, because that's not what we're doing. You know what I mean? There's a little bit of wiggle room, but and I don't want to, and you don't want to get credit, and the departments don't want to give credit. So if you have something that you think, well, I need this, like in this particular semester, can I have this? We can talk about it, and I'll be happy to accommodate. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
We have to sign for the curriculum class or sign for your class.
Say that again?
If there are some class we have to take for the semester, so we have to sign that class or
No.
if I have class of theory of advanced planning theory.
Okay.
And your class is theory of, so I have to sign your theory.
That is what I'm saying. Like if you have a class that you think you need to take, and if you think a class that qualifies for this, you can come and talk with me, and I will see whether I can.
When I sign it on the internet, I have to.
Because listed, I think we should register the next sessions semester's class.
Yes.
So I think she wants to know if
I sent a curriculum. Did you not receive it? It may not be perfect. That's what I'm saying. Like there's always the wiggle room, and you may want to sign up for a different class. Like for example, Jeff has taken one class that's listed there, so we need to talk about it and sort of like figure out what he's going to sign up for, what he's going to get credit for.
So I wonder whether he will sign for his class or for yours.
I don't know how to differentiate between his class and my class. I will be listing a class.
For example, I have to take the 6:30 studio. Then if I go to Capesha, I sign up for the 6:30 studio.
First of all, for you to sign up for any Capesha classes, I have to list it. Okay? You cannot sign for Capesha classes that are not listed. So you need to come to me and say, I have listed 631. That's a studio, right? So if you say not 631, it's 630 that I need to list, that's totally fine. Then I need to take a look at what 630 is. I don't know what 630 is. And then if I may decide it's totally fine, I'll go to Barbara and sort of like ask to list if I feel it's okay. But if I don't feel it's okay, I will probably ask from the instructor who's teaching the class, or ask Francis, who is the advisor, and figure out whether this is an appropriate thing to do, right? So if it's something very direct, and if I can decide this is appropriate, I should be able to go and listen. So let me know the classes that you think you would like to sign up for, right? I mean, I have given what I teach in Capaccia. You see, right? This is what I teach. This is what you get credit for, right? There's a little gap there. On the one hand, I mean, there's a gap. You can widen the gap, and you can get some credit for something else. But there's a limit to which that I will be interested in widening, because I don't want to say something that's not true, right? I want to be as close to the truth as possible. It's never going to be 100% true anyway. Does that make sense? Good. Any other questions? Okay, we'll talk about questions. Think about the questions. I mean, I think we will have a lot more questions coming, right? I'm going to show you. I'm going to introduce you to the Planning to Learn project that we will be going to do in Ahmedabad. It's very broad at this stage. Just going to give you a kind of like a broader idea, and how I'm going to do is kind of like I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Planning to Learn projects that we've done in the past to give you a sense, because the idea is I want you to be creative. So I'm just going to open up, basically, rather than sort of like close everything and tell this is exactly what you're going to do. You may never hear that. Hikoyat will tell, and then Hikoyat, who was the program assistant for Capaccia 5, will talk about her experience doing the Planning to Learn project last time. And then I will talk about what we're going to do next time. Okay? So let me begin, and you know what to do? Very good. So that's Hikoyat. About 3 years ago. And you've seen these pictures. I mean, I use the same things, just to Capaccias 1 through 5. Okay, so Capaccia is based on learning by doing, right? So the issue is kind of like learning. What do we learn is also a little bit open in this particular case. We will be learning about our professions. We can question about our professions. We can question our professions. We can learn about our education system. Is this how we should learn? We can question our own backyards, our own cities and towns, and we can also question ourselves. Eventually, I think the larger thing is kind of like it's reflective learning. We need to learn about ourselves. Okay? First of all, before I forget, because I sent a whole bunch of messages, I forgot to send one message. All of you should have a journal, right? If you don't have one, you need to get one. All of you should have a journal. In some ways, the journal means, sometimes architecture students call it a sketchbook. I don't mind which form. You should have something that you can do some quick exercises, take down some notes, and most of all, to write down some reflections. Because at the end, how we transform our experience into knowledge is through reflections. Right? So all of you should have a journal. That's a requirement. And we have done several Planning to Learn projects. As you know, we are doing two main projects. One is a 7-week project called Planning to Learn, and a 3-week project called Building to Learn. Right? The meanings have changed. Capaccia, when we began, it was limited to the College of Architecture and Planning. It's no longer, but it's still called Capaccia. Similarly, Building to Learn and Planning to Learn is kind of like when College of Architecture and Planning people are so much tied to, like I'm planning, I'm architecture, I'm landscape architecture. So these words come out of kind of like wanting to cater to these needs. But you will figure out it's not like a total planning project, or the other one we may not even build building to learn, but that's how they were formed. But the idea of 7 weeks is, I have experimented with various times. You can go to a particular place, and if you stay in a particular place for a few days, you can stay in that place with the comfort of not being in that place. Right? That means if it's kind of like a little difficult to handle, you can say this misery will be over in 3 days or 5 days. So I'll bear this, so you don't have to engage. The whole point of Capaccia is you will have to engage. So I've been playing around with like 3 week, 4 week, 5 week. I mean, I think 7 weeks is a good time, or over 6 weeks. You will have to engage. You will have to figure out how to eat. Otherwise, you will starve to death. And you will have to figure out how to clean your clothes. Otherwise, you won't be able to kind of like have clean clothes and so on. So I don't do this in any. I mean, I don't have any bad ideas about this, but I think it's great that'll enable you to sort of like gradually engage with the community. So how it's organized is we are going to stay in apartments in Ahmedabad. You will come to school from there. We will have discussions and so on. You will be working with local students on a local project. You will also there'll be local faculty who will be teaching you. And we will invite local experts, and so on. So you will have access to all these people, right? I mean, so I think it's great. It's a great resource. So that's how it's organized. So, and these people, the students with whom you're working, they don't have to be just students. You go to studio and sort of like forget about them. They will, they'll speak English. I mean, many of you will become friends, and they will, you will learn a lot from them as well. Right? So it's not just, you'll learn from me or somebody, but it's my job to kind of like, I consider it's my job to sort of like help you transform all this experience into knowledge, right? That's my basic job, right? And when I see opportunities, I will help you. And when I see something is not going well, I'll help you, warn you, whatever, So that's how it's going to operate. So any questions about that? You don't have to. I don't have to. This. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Will we have to bring our own computers there, or will we have access to using computers when we get there?
There are computers. You can access computers at SET. Yeah, but if you have one, I mean, it'll be more convenient. That's the only thing.
And
they do have
staying
labs and so on. Yeah, sorry.
And we'll be living in apartments there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wi-Fi. You will be totally cut off from the United States. Is that okay? No, there will be Wi-Fi. Yeah. There will be Wi-Fi. You can also buy cell phones. They also sell dongles. like this little. Things that you USBs that you plug in, and so like you can access the internet. I mean, most of the things, like almost everything that you find in China is also available in India, which may not be available here, but.
How do the phones work? With the cell phones? Or?
Yeah, if you want, you can get a cell phone.
No, I'm saying our cell phones are not going to work over here, obviously. So.
United States is very, very, very unique in a lot of different ways, right? Because as soon as you cross the borders, you will have to begin to talk. You will know how cold it is or warm it is, or you don't know how far it is, and you don't know how much milk to buy, because like everything is measured in very different ways in the rest of the world, right? And we also have like 110 electricity, like even the I mean nowadays HD TV, but usually the TV signals, and I mean all sorts of things are different. And in any part of the world, I mean they use this what are they called, the chips that you put in the SIM cards, right? And then, like I have another telephone, like when I go from India to, say, for example, Singapore, I buy another SIM card and you put it and it'll work. So, but the thing is, I mean, our technology is different. So you may not be able to use, unless you have a
Phone card.
You can use phone card, but a lot of things are very cheap. Like, I mean, you will have, the plug points will be different in India. You can't plug your computer to the wall, but then you can buy something very cheap, 20 rupees. I mean, 40 rupees is $1. So and you can go to an old cell phone store. I mean, a lot of students last time they bought, like in 2008. I mean, Kuwait can tell. Seems like it's cheap. The way almost everyone had a cell phone. So I mean, I don't even know until I saw that everyone was having a cell phone. So it seems like pretty cheap.
We can buy a SIM card in India. Right?
You can buy a SIM card, yes. If you want to use your telephone in India, I think it's better to buy a SIM card in India because that's cheaper, because it's an Indian service, huh? They have Vodafone and Airtel, yeah.
Sprint.
You have a SIM card? Okay. Here's a SIM card demonstration. Come on.
Yeah, this is right here. Whole thing.
Now,
All phones have that?
no, not all cell phones. The thing is, though, you have to have an unlocked cell phone to do that, which is why he was saying in India, in last trip, most students bought their cell phone over there.
Oh.
Unless
Okay.
Unless you unlocked it. Right?
Later?
Oh.
Yeah, pass, yeah. I'm in a meeting.
When we get over
I'm in a
Just
meeting.
buy a cell phone and then call people.
Okay. Okay. Give me a card. Okay.
Yeah.
It'll just be just
Mhm.
like that.
This is when I communicated with Olin across. He had a
Okay.
phone card that he called me off of.
Yeah, you can do that too. Or you can even use Skype.
I'm in a meeting.
Yeah.
Skype.
I'm in a meeting.
Look, okay, I'm
Okay,
out. I'm out. Skype.
Well, Skype's computer program. It lets you call people in America.
Oh.
Yeah, so there's Skype that you can use. Like if you get Wi-Fi, you can use Skype. It's free. Skype to Skype is free. If the people here have Skype, it's going to be free. And then if you use Skype, I mean, it's also much cheaper. So there are lots of different ways to do this. Any other tips that you want to give to your colleagues?
I would say actually with the power, because I'm assuming they're 240 and we're 120.
220 to 240, yeah.
Because when we were in Australia, they had 220, and we had to have an adapter to plug into the wall, and a lot of people didn't get the ground. And what would happen is you would actually get shocked from your computer. So when you get the adapter for outlets and stuff, make sure you get one with the ground, because then you will ground your computer.
Otherwise, if you want to get this little tingling shock, it's not like a shock that you'll die of, but it's.
But it's not good for the equipment.
No.
That's just one thing that I noticed in Australia. A lot of people didn't get the ground, so their computers were shocking them constantly.
Cool.
Something to think about.
Anything else about telephones?
A little kid with them.
Okay. Cool. Let's keep moving, and then we can come back. Okay. So this planning to learn projects, we have done a project in Sangku in Nepal that you will see. This time when we go to Kathmandu, we will also probably visit Sangku because it's a beautiful place. And then Mumbai Eastern Waterfront Development, that was in 2001. 2003, we did preliminary development plan for Pondicherry, which is a city on the southeast side of India, south of Chennai. And at the same time, the graduate students did 3 upgrading projects for informal settlements in Delhi. That's when I figured out that I really like to grow work. I was doing like 4 projects, with students, and decided maybe it's not a good idea. And then 2005 we did preliminary development proposals for Veravel. We may or may not visit, but it's close. It's in the area that we will be visiting because we did that project with SEPT also. And then last time we did. It's not a plan, but let's call it disaster recovery plan for 5 villages in southwest Sri Lanka. That is after the tsunami, tsunami of 2005. There were 5 settlements that were built. So we were studying the recovery process. So just to give you kind of like a glimpse, I mean, you've seen these videos earlier. On the top left-hand corner, it was in 2003 in New Delhi, which we will be going to, and we may even visit this place. I told you that we studied with a lady called Renu Khosla. It's a National Physical Planning, NIUA, I think, National Institute of Urban Affairs. Sorry, let me write it down before I forget. Yeah, she was a deputy director. So she's actually, it's quite interesting. She's an educationist. She's not a planner, not an architect, not one of those. Her original interest was to kind of like figure out the level of education of these kids in these what the Indians call slums. And I really don't like to call them slums because I think we've totally lost them after we call them slums, right? Because this is somebody else's home, So self-built housing, informal housing, there are other ways in which people talk about these other people's housing. So they go, you can see the field workers, the guy on the right-hand side, he's using chalk to kind of like do the layout on the ground, and then ask people to kind of like do things using stones and rocks and sticks and chapatis and so on. Like they want to know how many children live in these houses. So kind of like more like a census taking, like documenting this place, right? And as I told you last time, why I took the students, I mean, I always try to take the students to something new, and new things can happen in other parts of the world, and it does happen. And here, usually in our school, for the most part, and our school, and I mean schools in the United States, for the most part, the people who do community-based projects, they used to sketch by hand. So many of the people, even in our college, they are very antithetical to, or they are very critical of people using computers. And then there are these people who are using computers for land planning, GIS, that kind of stuff. They do this mass land planning. They don't see people, right? So this was a good example of kind of like combining these two. So she uses GIS to map these things. So I wanted to go and see for myself actually how this process takes place, and there were 3 settlements in which our students worked. That's one of the settlements. On the top right-hand corner is a pavilion. You can't see it very well because there's something there. That was built in, as part of the Building to Learn project, so I'm not going to go into that. The right-hand bottom one, also Building to Learn, we worked in a post-tsunami settlement in Kalamatiya that Hikoyat will be talking about. When what happened was that just before we left, I mean, you have to expect this, I would very much like to grab an opportunity for you. Right? Say 2005, we were getting ready to leave, we were making preparations, and our main project was going to be at SEPT, like this time, and then the second project was supposed to be in southern India. We were going to visit an architect called Laurie Baker, Building to Learn project, Laurie Baker. He has done fantastic work combining outside and inside, environmentally friendly designs. And there's an NGO that continues his work. I met him the previous summer. He was like very much ailing, he died, that year later. So wanting to kind of like expose, and I had also arranged for our students to work in the construction site, so that the idea is construction site it's good to learn how to build. It's okay, but I think more than that, you become legitimate citizens of this site, so that you can actually build. Building to learn means you're building to learn something else, because you can't just walk into somebody's house, right? I mean, so these projects will give you an opportunity to be there, right? And to learn. So this project is also like, so just before we left, the tsunami happened. The Boxing Day, the day after Christmas in 2004. So then Wes, the co-director, and I kind of like talked about this, and we said, we need to go, and this is a great opportunity. Maybe we should do something because we have so much connection there. So I talked with the architects who are very, good friends of mine as well as Wes's, and finally we found this project. I asked, just very straightforward, because I like when I work with people, I like to ask them, what's in it for you? Because when we go, we learn. We get something out of it, right? So I don't think it's fair for us to get something without giving something, right? And then again, we don't want to decide this is what we are giving and this is what we are getting. Why don't we let them decide? So I always ask them, what is in this for you? So I asked this architect, my friend, what's the purpose? Do you have any purpose for a bunch of white kids, coming there and doing something, to be quite blunt? He said, yeah, this project, he's an architect, he designed this. He said, we cannot get off the ground because the Urban Development Authority is not giving permission, and all sorts of stuff. So I said, okay, we'll come and start building. You don't have to think about anything. We'll just play ignorance. We're going to come and build. So you can see that there was an architect. There was a person who collected money in Maine, in the United States, right? There was an agency that managed funding in Sri Lanka called the Green Movement, of which the headquarters was is in Norway. So there was a whole organization. So it's a matter of kind of like we also taught so much to become so egotistic. So one of the things we will be learning is to be humble. We have a role to play. We don't have to be the boss telling people what to do all the time. We went and just said, we have a role to play. So I think this little thing that we did, starting to build, we went and we just dug the ground, and set out the buildings. We knew how to do that, our students learned very fast how to set out a building, using a plan. So there were things that we learned also, but we were working with them. Now when we went there, the people were like almost dead. Like women were kind of like trying to take care of the kids, and signing papers, and the men were drinking under a tree. They were calling that mourning, but anyway, they were drinking under a tree. But we brought all of these people, and a lot of people came in, and the bottom left-hand picture is kind of like when we were leaving, the whole village was there, they're working with us. So for me, there's no difference between building and community building. We are building a building, and it was also community building. So in many ways, I don't want to begin to separate, like this is architecture, this is planning, this is landscape architecture, or this is policy, because all of these things are involved in this. You can take your own angle. So that's what I'm kind of like encouraging you to do. So we select good learning opportunities. On the top left-hand corner, top right-hand corner, I'm sorry about this, you can't see these things. Is that no, there's no way to do this, right? You don't know. Okay. It's at the end of a project, there are presented projects. There are Capacia students as well as Nepali students there. You can see it, right? Good. This is another workshop that we did on the on the left-hand side is the lady in a sari is Renu Khosla of the National Institute of Urban Affairs. This is their conference room. Our students were having a discussion, probably before the last presentation. And on the bottom right hand was one of those informal settlements. We went in there, and this is almost like the welcome, okay? And top right hand, you cannot see. The students were taking a traffic count, basically. Oh, wow. Okay, I'll ask you to move that. Okay. So the top right hand is our students in Pondicherry with local students. They were taking a traffic count, enjoying a little structure that's been made. And since I have this, I will show you again. If you have not, you can go into. I'm going to end this call. So this is the state of Gujarat that we will be going to. And on this map, it's right here, right? This nice little bulging thing here. And Mumbai is a little bit to the south, and I don't necessarily. We may go to Mumbai, but I don't have a direct plan as such. And in Gujarat, this is Ahmedabad, and I send you in the message. I send you. I'm mixing up things, right? I'm talking about the Planning to Learn project, but I'm also talking about other things here. I don't know how to get this cursor. Cursor, come. Okay. So this is Ahmedabad. That's where we will be, and look at this Gandhi Nagar as well here. And then actually we'll be doing a field trip around here like that, and I'll give you more details. You can see. This is where the Jain temple, the Palitan is. This is where these are like princely states, Junagadh, and this Sasangir is where Asian lions live. And Veraval is where we worked. I showed you another project. This is a Portuguese city in if you remember when the Portuguese first came to Asia, they had their capital in Goa, and then the other city is Diu. So there are lots of very interesting things that we can see. The shipbreaking yard is here, Alang. I mean, I don't know whether we'll be able to go there. We need to get permission. Porbandar is where Gandhi was born. This was a kind of like a very ancient port called Dwarka. And then this Somnath temple here is a very ancient Hindu temple. Okay. Gandhi Nagar is the capital. This state used to be, and this state, Maharashtra, of which the capital I think is Mumbai. They were together, and when the state was separated, they wanted this new state capital. So they built this capital called Gandhi Nagar, very close to Ahmedabad. So we will talk more about that later. And by the way, since we're going to Delhi is around here, I think. Oh, Delhi's here, sorry, right here. And then we'll be going around here, I think. Okay, so here's some more images. On the top left hand are the people who are I told you in Delhi we did 3 projects. On the top left hand is one project where their main issue was sanitary facilities. So our students were kind of like trying to figure out how could they provide sanitary facilities. And then in this one, the issue was livelihood. They had actually moved the settlement from the city to the outskirts, and then people don't have jobs anymore. You can't just move people because then they have houses, they don't have jobs, right? Because sometimes we tend to be too smart and think they need a house, and they now have a house, no job. And this is this is also that National Institute of Urban Affairs, like I told you. Actually, it's this project here. Claudia is presenting the project. This is this Veraval. In 2005, we went. This is the Somnath temple that I showed you when we worked with the SEPT. We did a preliminary development plan for Veraval. The most interesting thing is I told you that we did 3 projects. Now, the top left hand is one where they had sanitary issues. This is 2003 again. Top right hand, they had livelihood issues. The third one I don't have images of. There was a water supply issue. The settlement doesn't have water, right? So we were kind of like investigating this, and I was kind of like, we can, if I may take you back to this conversations, I was kind of like throwing this idea, like maybe nobody's kind of like preventing them from having water. Nobody's really mean to say, those guys shouldn't have water, Maybe there's a bigger issue here, and so on. Of course, the city cannot provide water to everybody. That should be understood. But also the idea was kind of like some people were saying, it's difficult to kind of like design. It's a design issue. I said maybe it's not a design issue. Maybe these engineers know how to design, and so on. So they went around and kind of like asked people. They went to the water board and so on, asked why they don't have water. right? So the idea that I brought up, this is, I'm highlighting this because this is one of the principles or approaches that we take. That, say, one of the students, kind of like she used to, this Claudia, she's from MIT, she's very good. She set up like 3 appointments with the Delhi Development Authority to figure out, like how this settlement operates. So I had to have a strong discussion with her about, like maybe you want to go to the village, the settlement, because a lot of things that we learn, like how the hierarchy of the government works, you can learn these things very fast. There are books about these things. There are laws about these things. There are, So I said, don't spend so much time on this. You learn this, you map it out. This is how it operates. There's a central government, there's a city government, there's a mayor, there's all these things. But go to the settlement and ask, how do they operate? When they don't have water, who do they go to? They may not be going to the same thing. Like this map may not be working, right? So there's a formal practice, right? We know the government structure, the banks, and the land values, and all these things that we are taught. But then we can go to this place and ask people, how do you operate? Maybe they operate in a very different way. So the whole idea is maybe the daily practices and the formal practices that we know of may not be congruent, may not be congruent, maybe like that, right? So if we can actually find the incongruence, maybe we can actually be better helpers, right? So the biggest issue was to kind of like map out the structures and processes of daily practices. So it was funny, the day we presented, our students presented, that settlement that didn't have water got water. We still don't know how they got water, but maybe we asked questions from right people and instigated this issue, because it seems like you don't even have to have this great project and earn a lot of money to do that. Our students just went around and talked to some people, and water happened. This is another project that we did. I showed you, this community development project. Hikoyat will talk a little bit more about the some deeper recovery aspects, but I'm just going to show you these people lived in tents like this, immediately after the tsunami, and this is what calamity looked like. That side is a lagoon. On this side is our side is a sea. So the sea kind of like washed. You can see the flow of the house, but the entire house is gone right there. And then of course they have rituals to begin constructing. Like they boil milk here. This guy on his side, and this is these are temporary settlements. This was a temporary settlement, like 10 by 10 rooms in which they lived. And this is a woman who lost her kid from her own hands. This is again that picture that is already saw. And more of these. Then we went to the beach, and the first day, what we did was kind of like we organized we didn't organize, we participated in a self-help effort to clean up the lagoon. Right? This was after coming from Veravel. I'm going to tell you something about Veravel as well. And then the students were asking me, Nihal, we are architects and planners. Why are we cleaning up beaches in other countries? Very good question, I thought, and then I didn't respond to that question. There will be many questions that you ask, I may not respond. Not because of unkindness, but, and then the next day we went and sort of like met with these guys, with Rasika and them, and they started creating this play environment for the kids, because this was a common kitchen that was built for this temporary shelter, temporary settlement. But Sri Lankan people don't cook in common kitchens. They cook their food separately. We will learn about cooking and eating in South Asia, which might be very different, than some other places. So they decided to kind of like transform this into a play area for the kids. And And then in the evening we played cricket with the people, and then we wanted to start building, and they didn't build the following day because it was not an auspicious day. So this is what I mean by planning to learn or building to learn, because we are now learning that they don't build on any day. They start building on a particular day, So they had these times that they worked out. And then, of course, they don't just start building. They boil milk and all these things and sort of like do all the auspicious things and start. So this is what we were doing, in that. So as I said, once we started building, everybody came in and it became a great community development project. Then the students realized, you can't just go into somebody's house and say, well, we want to kind of like help you right now. It doesn't happen like that. So so this was kind of like a process through which, we became close, right? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, so we pulled out boats, from the lagoon and piled rubble. And here's we played volleyball. And in Veravel, let me go back. Hikmet will talk about some things, and then I'm going to fill up. In Veravel, what happened was this on the bottom right hand is Veravel. Veravel is on the coast, Saurashtra coast. It's kind of like on the coast near Ahmedabad. So we had this planning to learn project. I managed to convince that they have 15-week semesters. I said, can we work with you guys for 7 weeks, right? Half a semester. And I think planning to learn is much better than, in some ways, much better than building to learn for this, to get to know place. Because planners like to investigate, try to learn, use secondary data, and try to find this place, learn about this place. I thought, maybe that's a good idea. That's a good way to enter into a particular place, right? So I spelled out to those guys, to SEPT, which is the leading school of planning, that I'm going to break this project into 3 components. First 2 weeks, we will investigate the place using secondary data, right? That census data, maps, whatever. Go to the government office in Gandhinagar and Ahmedabad and learn, right? And then for the second 2 weeks, we'll do surveys and stuff that the planners know how to do, right, in the field work. Sectoral analysis, you go and figure out what transportation is, what kind of transportation is there, what kind of housing is there, and so on. And then the final 3 weeks, we develop preliminary proposals, right? I will have to say, even as I planned, I was questioning, I was usurping, I was subverting this, right? Because I want to kind of like ask, the big question that we ask is not what we can do for you, right? Planners and architects and designers, we are providers. We like to provide things, right? Is it possible for us to help people to provide themselves? Which I might actually call empowerment, right? That doesn't mean that we are going to be bad. Is there a role that we can actually develop and understand, and develop for ourselves? So when we were doing this, so our students studied for the first 2 weeks. I'm also showing the evolution of these ideas at some point. And then I also have to be comfortable. This is a leading school, and I can't just go and say, this is what I think, you should be doing this. So we went to the field, and they did surveys. And while we were doing surveys, and I told my students, don't just do surveys. Do good interviews, get to know the people, ask people, or what do you eat? Where do you eat? Where do you throw garbage? Get to know all these things. That's the whole point of planning to learn. Don't just go and collect data and come back, but do the data, because, we will need the data, right? So while I was there, everybody was saying, oh, so many people come and collect data and go away, they never come back, which is all true. This is the bad rap that people have. So I was kind of like having, people, many of you know me, I like to kind of like laugh and say things, I said, well, what if we came back? And then some government officers said, no, you won't come back. We'll see. Maybe we come back, right? So I go back to the university, and I tell my colleagues with whom, this is a collaborative project, right? I mean, there are Indian faculty who are teaching. I said, I want to take my students back to present this. Oh, Nihal, we will not have proposals. Nobody can develop proposals. They will not develop enough good proposals in 3 weeks and so on. I said, I am dead sure they will not be able to develop proposals. And before we go, I tell you, and I told them, and I will tell future CAP patients, we are not going to solve anybody's problems. Forget it. You will not solve anybody's problems. You will probably not solve your own problems, right? So I think this is too pompous to think that we can solve other people's problems, right? We can address, we can take part, we can have dialogues, and so on. So I told my colleague, I know that we are not going to have these great proposals, not least because we don't even know this place, right, very well. But then again, what's wrong? We went and talked with the people. They gave us some ideas. Now we are processing this information, and we have some ideas. What's wrong in going back to the people and saying, this is what we think, what do you think? We can have a dialogue, right? But they are not used to that. We are so used to sort of giving this package, this is my plan, you implement it. This is my design, you do it, and so on. So finally, the dean of the school, whom you will meet, with whom we will be working, for some reason he likes me. So he just said, oh, Nihal, it's okay, we'll go, And then I said, I wanted to present our findings, to put it that way, to the people, regular people. But then, of course, the mayor heard that we were coming, and he called me and said, if you're coming, you have to have the meeting in the town hall. One of the biggest problems that we have, the community-based projects and so on, when we have a meeting in a big place, small people don't come. That's not their place, right? So I was a little worried and upset, but then I thought, there's no way that I could avoid, And then we did this, and he told me that I can invite anybody that I like. But of course, the people in the informal sector don't come to meetings in the town hall anyway. But anyway, there's a fishing community that is kind of very radical and so on. You will see, it's a very nice, interesting place because Gujarat is a dry state, and the Charanagar that we'll be working, they brew alcohol there. And then also the Karwa community, which is the fishing community, they also have alcohol, and so on. So and it's a different community because you can see Hindus, Buddhists, and so on. They don't kill animals basically, for the most part. Jains don't even touch them. At night they even sort of cover their mouths so that insects don't go in. They don't eat onions and carrots because when you pull them out, you harm life. So you can see in a place where if there's a fishing industry, right? This is what you'll see. You will actually learn what diversity and democracy is about. In these places. So these guys do something else. Nobody's going to kind of kill them or harm them. So anyway, they came and they started. So our students presented. When our students were presenting, I said, don't translate. This is something that will come up this time as well. I said, don't translate anything. Some people speak in Hindi, some people speak in Gujarati, which is the local language. Some people speak in English. You can translate, the summary or something like that. Right? If they want, they will ask questions. You can respond. That's life. That's life. When you go to India, you will not understand a lot of things that other people are saying anyway, because they will be speaking in a different language. So, why can't this be like the normal? So we did this. And then the mayor, of course, stood up and sort of said, as any mayor, oh, these are great proposals, although we didn't make proposals. He said, these are great proposals. I have started doing all these things one by one, and so on. They gave us a gift, like some books, which I brought to the library, and all these things, everything is so fantastic. Then somebody from the Karwa community stood up and said, you idiot, you don't, he didn't use that word, but almost sounded like that, and you didn't do this and this, that. So they were having this big conversation, very kind of noisy debate, And then when everything finished, when we were going, one of my students came to me and asked me, Nihal, it was very unsuccessful, wasn't it? I said, why? He said, nobody accepted our proposals. I said, I said, first of all, I'm not sure whether we had proposals. Because, I mean, what do we know about India? You know, like, I mean, we go there for a little while, right? But if I say, maybe we became a catalyst, maybe they need to solve their own problems. Maybe we are not the problem solvers, they need to solve their own problems. Now they're talking to each other, right? We created a situation where they can talk to each other, and so on, right? So, what would you think of that as, right? Do we have a role as a catalyst, coordinator? You know, do we always have to tell people what to do, right? And so that's one part of the one aspect of this planning to learn project. Okay. If I may add another one, just so I'm trying to problematize. I'm trying to get you to think here. Okay. One thing we ask our students to do is to question. Sometimes it's very important to have good questions. We are always taught that to have answers, right? What's the capital of Sri Lanka? Or what's the capital of India? Where are we going? We have to answer. Sometimes it's very good to have questions, good questions. Maybe, as Gandhi said, you know, like, I mean, maybe we won't, you know, we won't get any, we won't kind of like, I mean, none of these things will, how do you put this? At the end, most of the things that we do might not make much sense, right? I mean, you can think, you know, like when you're 80 years old or something like that, thinking like this, right? But still, we have to do it. We have to try to do some good things, right? So, so it's very important to have these questions. And Claudia on the top left, you know, on the bottom left-hand corner, she's a very, very bright student. On the last day, Kuala Lumpur, that time also, all the students left and she was going to Singapore and I was doing something else for another couple of days there. We met for breakfast and she said, you know, Nihal, you have the luxury of being a professor. You can just keep asking questions. I'm a planner. I have to give answers. You know, I have to you know, give solutions and so on. I told her, Claudia, you're not a planner. You're a student. Why can't you live your student life? Just ask some good questions, enjoy the student life, because once you become a planner, you will have to do what you're saying. Maybe you won't be able to do that. And also, when you join a place, the boss will tell you what to do anyway, right? So just enjoy your life, ask some good questions, and this is the time to ask, because if you don't do it now, you won't be able to do it later, right? So I invite all of you to become students, and I'm not asking you to be shabby. I'm going to demand you to do some very serious work. I mean, Hikoyat will tell you, and Marino will tell you too, and who's going with us. But just relax, you know. I mean, and we don't have to be so tight. And I'm going to say one more thing, and I'm going to turn this to Hikoyat. When we were doing this project in Pondicherry, you know, this was kind of like, this was the Pondicherry end of the Pondicherry project. These were students kind of like in Pondicherry, kind of like doing a traffic count. The undergraduate students worked with the School of Planning and Architecture. The two main schools in India, School of Planning and Architecture in Delhi and the CEPT University in Ahmedabad. Okay, so this was in 2003 when we were working with them. So in Pondicherry, I always like to connect to the locals because that's how you get to know the place, right? So I went to this local school. And there was a lady who is the director of the environmental studies program. She said, we would like to give your students a workshop. I grab any opportunity that comes my way. I said, yes, of course, give us a workshop, you know, about the environment. So we were sitting down. Right next to me was the director of the School of Planning and Architecture in Delhi, which is actually some people call that the leading school. And premier planning educator, fantastic guy, Jamal Ansari, whom we will meet. And then this lady, I can't remember her name, and she told us all the things about how the kids live near garbage. They develop IDCs and all the bad things that are happening to these people living in these informal settlements. Then I said, that's all fine. This was just for my own sake. I asked this question, but it turned out to be some interesting question for me for the rest of my life so far. And I asked her, you know your science very well. Everything you said makes a lot of sense to me. They live in very bad environmental conditions. Could you tell me 2 or 3 things that they're doing extremely well in regard to the environment? Something that we can go to this place, the slum or whatever you call it, and say, like, my God, you're doing these 3 things so well. Like, why don't you do this better? But, and then say, like, maybe you can also do A, B, and C. That's something that we propose, right? She got up, she walked around, looked the other way, looked outside the window, came back, sat down, paused and all these things, and then she said, well, I have never thought about that. So I asked her a question. I said, what makes you think that if you go to a community and say, like, this, everything you do is very bad. If you change your life the way I say, like if you do A, B, C, and D from tomorrow on, your life will be fantastic. And what makes you think that they will listen to you? Secondly, why do you think anybody else will listen? And if anybody else say this, will you listen to them? If anybody else say tomorrow, if you're going to go into a place and saying, you're going to become architects and planners and landscape architects and so on. If you go to a place and say, like, well, you're not doing this right, here's how it should be done. And if you believe that they will listen, if somebody says, like Tim comes and tells us, like, man, this is not how this should be done, here's how it should be done, will we all stop everything that we're doing and then do something else? So I think this was an interesting question that I was also kind of like grappling with in regard to kind of like this planning to learn. So you can see we are asking questions about learning, planning, and all these things. It's in many ways I want to consider this to be a journey that you are going through. Actually, I will be asking you to do a little portfolio, and I will be asking you a question. One of the assignment questions would be, what is your Capesha experience? And I'll elaborate on that later. But I just want to kind of like frame this in such a way. And any questions? And Hikoyat can continue about the project. Okay, you're going to just talk? Okay. So any questions before that?
Well, I just have a little comment.
Okay.
I just really liked what you were talking about when you said, well, this is probably a couple weeks back, when you mentioned a village that had some problems and they end up getting new houses or new homes, and they couldn't figure out how to flush or use a toilet system, and they couldn't fix their roof. And I think that's basically sort of like us in the United States in some aspects with the housing design that we did, like the public housing design, that it just doesn't work for those people, and that they weren't really culturally sensitive.
Culturally sensitive. Okay.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure. I hate being like that. I don't ever want to be like that. So I really don't understand how we can plan without knowing. Like, I know if we know their daily lives and how that is, but not. I don't know. It's just so different. I guess you're just trying to bring the good things, the good aspects out of our, building habits into theirs. Like, we wouldn't want to make something that is really individualistic, because we know as Americans we're very individualistic, and they're not. They're more collaborative based on their culture. Does that make sense? It's not really a question, but it's just.
They're different. I'm not sure whether they're not individualistic. I mean, they may be individualistic in different ways and collaborative. I mean, Americans are also, community-based in some ways. I mean, and then they are community-based in a different way.
Yes,
do you have any response to this?
Kitchen.
They can be individualistic.
Yeah, I was thinking about the kitchen. They want their own private kitchen, but we want every private room. Everything has to be private to us, like garages and private. Everything's private. You say what?
There are also people just like you,
Yeah.
don't expect too much difference as well, but don't also expect too much similarity. So there are different, we can find some people who are very individualistic. There are also some people who are more collaborative. So
Now,
it's all different.
the people that would be more collaborative, would you say they're more traditional? Like the culture, the actual culture, do you think they're more family-oriented and like?
Well, it depends on the culture.
Really?
The place where we went to different places, obviously. So I can't say that it's all the same thing. I can talk about the Sri Lankan community where we spent most of the time. So it was relatively small village, only like 100 households. Actually, 100 people, a little bit over, like 108 with all the kids. 30 households in total. It's a relatively small village, and they were totally different. Also, we were expecting that it's a small village, it's pretty simple, we can learn it very well in a very short period of time. That wasn't the case. The more time we spent, the more group dynamics we learned. What was going on within the village. There were some families which were richer, some families which were more poor. So the level of interaction within the community was different as well. Since I started, I will be continuing. Once we went to the village, I will put
Let me see if I have here.
No, can we go further?
No, I'll get some calamity for you.
Anyway, so we went to the village, and in the beginning we really didn't know what we were going to do there. We were just planning to learn about the village, to study the community, to basically our first stage was collecting information, collecting data. We of course tried to get this secondary data as much as possible from internet and other sources, but since it's a very remote village and it's relatively small, there's not much information you can get from secondary sources. So basically, most of our job was to have to be done firsthand. That's what we did. We conducted the major survey within the village, and it was relatively easy compared to other villages, which had like more than like 1,000 people. So for us, it was relatively easy. We could actually meet every single person. However, it wasn't really that easy because people do work. And there, nobody sits at home and waits until like we come and then we start asking questions. So we had to collaborate not only with the villagers but within our team as well. Since our every team has its own life as well, and a little bit we had a little bit tension because of dynamics. Some people couldn't stay like longer. Some people wanted to like have their free time as well. So it would be like in the beginning we couldn't get in touch very well with the villagers.
This is Calamity. I'm just going to run some images. Yeah, you keep talking. I'll run some images.
We couldn't have a close interaction because the time when we came, it was most of the time during daytime. And during daytime, most of people, of course, do their work. Like they go fishermen, they go fishing, kids go to school, women go to market, etc., etc. So we come pretty much every day to the half-empty village. And like, yes, of course, we could talk to them. So we ended up talking most of the time to the same people over and over. And only with some villagers we met only in our last week, basically. So you can see that it's kind of how the projects evolve.
In the beginning, we didn't know what to do. We were planning to do one major project since all the villagers were asking us for community shelter, or like, not shelter, like community center, where they could like, we didn't know actually what for they wanted to use it in the beginning, because it was in their idea since initial plan had this community center. And they didn't get this community center from the initial plan, which was relocated to their old site. And their old site from the new site was about like 3 kilometers away. Sorry, in miles.
That's me.
You should use miles. I'm not from US. So it was like 3-4 kilometers. It's kind of far, and so they didn't really use the community center, which was provided in the old village. So they were asking us, why don't you provide us community village? And we were asking them, why would you need that? But apparently they would have needed, like, for the community gatherings, and like they wanted to have some extracurricular classes for their kids. But we didn't really plan out it very well, so we couldn't really build for them or do a community center. But what we did, we mostly worked with the people, and we mostly tried to, we conducted several separate small projects. Everybody in our team decided that we will carry out some, we will take a leading role in certain small project, and the other team members will be helping. So we had in total, I believe, like 4 projects implemented. The ideas were even more, but some things that we have done, it's like contact database. Since villagers were complaining a lot that so many researchers come after the tsunami and ask them the same questions over and over again and again, they are tired. They don't want to go back to the bad memories, so they would like to decrease some this sort of intervention, outside intervention to their village as well. So what we did, since many of those previous researchers would leave and students who would come, they would leave their contact information. We collected from all the villagers who had this contact information into one database. That we created a list and like left to the community leaders, and plus we tried to give them our contact information, so just in case if somebody comes again, so they can contact us and we will just tell about our research, so they wouldn't be going through the same process as we did. And other project that we did was inter-village tour. Since many our villagers were complaining about the houses that they received, and we looked at the 5 different settlements. So we saw that our villagers weren't in a really pretty, they got pretty decent houses. So we were saying, like, why would you complain so much about that? So we decided to show them how other, they had no connection to other villagers. Since it was in close communities, they would interact only within the surrounding neighbors and only to those areas where they go to school, to market, and that's it, basically. The level of interaction is like quite limited. Unlike us, we traveled throughout the entire Hambantota region. It's southern part of Sri Lanka, which had the actual president is from that region. So it was one of the most successful planning tsunami recovery plans that were implemented. So what we organized inter-village tour, where we took several leaders from each community, from 5 of these villages, and we just drove them around all these villages, and they stopped by in each village. They interacted with the local people, so they could share information. They could share about their concerns. They could share about what they received. So it was kind of relieving information for them to know how other villagers lived and what were their concerns. They could share how they were solving their problems, their issues. So it was a good experience. And since those community leaders came back to their villages, they could share with their local members of the community what they have seen in other places. And the other project that we did, it was money management project. I actually was struggling a lot with Dr. Michal about this, since I was criticized a lot about that. It was my idea that villagers didn't spend their money wisely, so I decided to kind of give them a little bit of a small crash course on budgeting for the year, and for months and for year. So I don't know how successful that was, but responses from the villagers were quite, they were also, it's probably because we have spent already pretty significant amount of time there, so they had some sort of like connection to us, so they listened to us. And response from the villagers was pretty positive. They agreed. I talked mostly with women, since they were like kind of taking care of the family budget, while men were like breadwinners for the family. And they were saying like, yeah, that's true, that's right. Some of them probably did it, but it seemed to me like they set aside. So there were some things maybe they could catch up, they could get, but not necessarily everything. But it wasn't my idea that they will be following whatever the plan that we provided them. It wasn't the idea. The idea was to give them the options how to start thinking in terms of the planning long term, since they were always complaining that since the income is seasonal, so it was fluctuating a lot, and they wouldn't make every month like ends meet. So that was the idea how they could start thinking. Apparently, during that workshop, we found out the different methods how they do, how the local people do money management thing. They usually buy gold if they have extra money, and in case of like emergency, they can sell it back and then get money. And they were like putting money into interest man's hands, which was additional source of income for them. And another project that we did was the community profile. We basically tried to draw the picture of the entire community. We spent quite a bit of time in order to learn how these people live. We went to the places where they shop. We went to the places where they go to school. We went to the places where they go fishing, go walk, because they, since the community was relocated to a different place, it was closer from ocean, so they had to diversify their activities as well. They were doing now different other jobs, like in order to generate more income to their families. Like they would work like as a seasonal laborers at paddy fields for rice cultivation. They would go to work to shell factory, and we went to all these places to learn how these villagers live. And while spending time within these families, we learned how they are connected within the community. Apparently, what we found out that most of them are somehow related. These are 30 households, and somebody's grandfather, cousin, or like some sort of relative. So we found that there were basically 3 major family trees, and since they are all some sort of relatives, they would help each other, of course, as well. So we drew this basically community profile, which we said it was interesting. But then one of the other projects that we did was quite interesting and had like unexpected results for us. First of all, we were working with students from Maratua University, and once we were absent for 2 weeks in Mumbai. Then when we came back, students from Maratua, they decided to organize participatory workshop. So where they would find out how villagers would, what the problems they face in this resettlement and how they solve their problems. Their workshop, I'm not sure, like, I don't want to be judging the success of their workshop, but it tripped out many questions from our side. And immediately after following that workshop, we went to, there was organized a workshop by the NGO, which actually was controlling, I'm using the word that I don't like, but they were basically overseeing the village. Since the Green Movement of Sri Lanka is the NGO which collected all the donations in order to build the houses, and they hired the constructors. They're not the builders themselves. They just manage this, getting money from donors, and in order to transfer them into real built houses. That's what they did, and they did a pretty good job in terms of this. That they managed to provide the permanent houses within 1 year, less than 1 year period. So it's pretty impressive, the job that they did. However, the following job that they were doing, and what we kind of found a critique of their job, that now since they provided these houses, they were kind of owning the village. That's how we felt. They were telling to the villagers, you cannot do this, you cannot do that, you are not supposed to be expanding your lots, you are not supposed to be building outdoor kitchens, because the design wasn't really well suited to Sri Lankan style of living in the village, since all of them, most of the villagers cook outside, so they needed outdoor kitchens. And since it wasn't provided, these facilities weren't provided, they would do it by themselves. But since it wasn't really environmentally friendly, and Green Movement of Sri Lanka is some sort of ecological movement, ecological organization, NGO, and they were like coming back and saying, like, oh, you have to tear it down. You're not supposed to do this, and that you're not supposed to be expanding towards the sanctuary place, because it's like it's for animals, it's for that place is in nature. So this all tricked us. And what we did, we basically gathered our villagers for the last time, I guess, just before saying goodbye, before leaving them. And we tried to bring up the self-esteem and self-appreciation to what they have. Because we have heard so many complaints within those like 7 weeks that we were there, that we were thinking like, probably these people don't really see beyond what they got. Like, they got pretty much a lot. And for us, it was, they had a pretty decent life, because we compared them to other places where we have seen. We traveled also to Thailand, to Indonesia, to Mumbai, to see other places which were also devastated by disasters. Of course, in Mumbai, we went to informal settlements. It's uncomparable. But it opened our eyes to look at how little appreciation our villagers that had to what they already received. And our job was, not our job, what we determined to do was to show to the villagers how much good things that they have within their village. So we conducted this so-called SWOT analysis. It wasn't a real SWOT analysis. We basically listed all the positive things and negative things. And we did it in 2 ways. First, we told them what we have seen in the village, the good things that we have seen in their village. And then we started asking them what was their complaint, and then what was good about their village. Since most of the tension, what we saw in our village was that all the village was so good, everything was so great there, and now they're living in here like they are relocated, and they're cut off all their old ties and all their old means of ways of living. So we were trying to compare the old village and the new village. And by the end of that meeting, I think there was a breaking point, because villagers started like looking with a different eyes at what they have. And basically, they didn't necessarily lost their old village. They still had those lands. Of course, there were now houses, as you can see. There were like just platforms of their old houses, or even platforms were gone in some places. It seems. And of course, perhaps in future, we were anticipating if they would have enough resources, they could have rebuilt those old houses. But for now, they have all these empty lots. And according to regulations, they are not supposed to be actually building their houses there. After tsunami hit, the government of Sri Lanka, they got the new legislature, new law, which prohibited to build houses in 100 meters of coastal area unless it's a business facilities such as tourism, etc. But if it's hotel, it can be on the beach. But if it's a house, it cannot be. So this, oh, of course, there was another project that we did also. It's a deed investigation, which was basically these people were provided houses in the first year. But 3 years later, they were living there already for 3 years. Since 2005. For 2 years they were living already, or more than 2 years. They didn't have any document which would justify their property. So these were important, of course. And we felt that was also one of the factors which allowed free movement of Sri Lanka to manipulate the villagers, because they were feeling like they are still not the full owners of the houses. Since they don't have a document, legal document, they of course cannot be. They have to say yes, yes, yes to everybody who is coming from outside and basically tells them what to do. And for this purpose, we actually tried to trace the entire chain, how it's supposed to be done. So we went to all the offices, planning offices, starting from the Ambalantotas, and we went to all this regional office, like then we went to who told that you need to go to capital. So we tried to trace where this document is. Then apparently we found out the document has been issued a year ago. However, it was being laid on some government official's desk, just to who was waiting the right time when he can present it in order probably to gain some political weight as well. But that was the issue. For the villagers, this was a very important document. However, it wasn't handed them for a long period of time due to some very absurd reasons, from our standpoint, and from politicians' standpoint. So as we found out, actually, 2 months later, our villagers received it, so it was a good news. And I look forward that maybe someday we can go back and see again.
Yeah, I hope you remember, it's, thanks, very impressive, Hikoet. So I hope you remember, what she's been talking about. I mean, how much she knows about this place, where she spent 7 weeks, and also all sorts of different projects. If one of the things that we were asking was kind of like, do we have to have this plan making and plan implementation separate? Can we kind of like work with the people? Do we have to, for the slightest thing, do we have to ask somebody else to do, do something? Can we also kind of like do something at the same time? This image, here is Hikoet talking to that meeting that Hikoet told you guys about. And just maybe I'll very quickly say this, and I need to go to Ahmedabad.
Okay, so some other villages we did more, I don't know, we consider physical input into the village with the bus shelter in one of the villages. Other villagers, they helped them with water facilities that they were experiencing, lack of, they would have water only at night during very inconvenient time, so they would have to get up and collect the water. So that was the self-collecting system for the water. And the other villagers, they saw that there was a problem with the bridge, which was connecting the small river with stream, which was dividing the village into two parts. That would create always problems for the villagers, because when it's flooding, it would cover the entire bridge, which was very shaky. They actually have seen some accidents happen. So they thought, our roommates, they thought that they cannot do anything, and they addressed how to raise money from NGOs to rebuild the bridge. And the other villager, the other team, the last team, they did a huge festival, which which was more like a community building project, and it's just energized the villagers. Maybe that's probably what our villagers needed, since the recovery process from disaster, it's more like psychological, to get over the psychological effect of tsunami, because every time when researchers came and say like, oh, how you suffered after tsunami, that's a different thing. You always recall the bad memories for people. But what we try to do, we try to teach, not to teach, try to expand their eyes into the future, so not to look back in the past. Those villagers who had the festival, actually, they were planning to do it on an annual basis. It was so successful.
I think that's it. Yeah, thanks, Ikoya. I mean, I mean, you can see, I mean, it was really enjoyable. I mean, none of these things could be planned before we left, and everything happened while we were there. Sort of like people gradually learning about things, and also the top one, you know, top right-hand one. The students figured out there's no sense of place, because, you know, like, I mean, they've been relocated. They're in a different place. You know, like, there are lots of other people that they didn't know before. You know, and so. The bottom ones are about this festival. The top right hand is about a little art festival that you know, they invited the kids to kind of like draw stuff and sort of like put on the wall. So all the mothers came with the kids, you know, and so on. Sort of they organized that one. Any questions that you have? I mean, I would like to show you what we're going to do. I mean, I would like to introduce to you what we're going to do, but again, you know, like, I mean, there's no need to rush, you know, because you know, we need to figure things out. So before I do that, any questions?
May I just let them?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Please, be open. Be open to any different ideas. You will generate ideas being over there, communicating, interacting with the people. Be open that your initial idea will have to be thrown away, and then you will have to start everything in the very last moment, like last 2 weeks. I mean, like, it could happen. Don't put it like, don't of course wait until that moment will come. Like, so explore more and different diverse ideas. Just try to learn over there while you are over there. So it's not that you are coming with this baggage that you cannot throw it away. I mean, like, you don't have to throw it away. You will need it when you will be back, and then you will have to write your report. You will need all those skills. But take a lot of pictures. Keep your journal as updated as possible, because once you will have to go back, you will have to write your papers. And your journal will be really helpful for you to go back and to write those things. And plus, there are lots of readings to do, so lots of books.
So one of the things that, I mean, what we are asking is kind of like, how could we begin to even engage in these people's process? Because when you go to that place, first of all, people think that you look white, you have money, you know, and maybe some tourists, maybe NGO, non-governmental organizations that have come to work. We can ask them to sort of like provide us with something, you know, like some motorcycles or something, you know. So all these stereotypes have to be passed, you know. Like, I mean, I was showing Ashley, you know, like, where is Ashley? I don't have it here. But anyway, what we were doing was kind of like, I was asking our students to kind of like go from the small thing. If you see somebody sort of like carrying a bucket of water, just start there, you know. not from the world systems and globalization and so on. Just ask, what is this water? Why are you carrying this water for? And you begin to kind of like develop this from the bottom. You probably need to understand the structures and processes and all these things, but you don't want to kind of like say, this is how the world works, this is the West and this is the East. Then you already fixed everything. You will probably not learn very much, So go back and forth, and so on. Even we even questioned this SWOT analysis, as she said. I was really worried at some point. So finally, I had to say, forget about SWOT. It doesn't work here. I personally think it doesn't. Now, if you ask me, I don't think that's a strong enough tool. Actually, it has its own work, but I think it needs to be updated. Any questions? Any comments? Your ideas? Come on.
After reading Wallerstein and Spivak, I think I'll start with a bucket of water first.
No, that is the thing. I think we need to have all this. We need to know world systems. We need to know Spivak, and we need to know how this is called grounded research. Going from bottom and you build this. Because if the research is not grounded, if you don't know these people, then you cannot. Actually, it was interesting. I probably told you this. One of the students who worked with Hikoyat, Ashley, she was kind of lost at some point, and one day she came and told me that this fisherman asked her, you being not married, why are you living all by yourself? She was probably talking about, at Ball Stage, she lives by herself and so on. And it's not their culture. You were talking about the different cultures, right? Just not. And Ashley came and told me that Ananda asked this question from her. I said, fantastic, you're talking. Because you can't start saying, I'm going to know about you, but I'm not going to let you know about me, I don't think that's how it works, So I said, that's fantastic. Now he's asking you some questions. I don't care what you tell. Have the dialogue, not that I don't care about the fact that they're talking. But I'm not that. I wasn't quite interested in the content, why she was living by herself and stuff. But try to explain, and you can ask questions. Now you guys are talking, Yeah.
It's actually there's a group of planners, educators, who talk about love and attachment to people with whom we work. It's how we should treat the communities. It's not that they're our subjects. So you cannot really. We had this old debate about should we be detached completely from the community? It's not really. From my personal experience, when we worked in Calamity, it didn't work like that. Without being there physically, almost till 9 p.m. what we were staying there. So without this, we didn't get to know them. We didn't get to do all these things that we did. So there is a portion of your work which will be involving some attachment.
Okay, so I'm gonna show you something about this place. You just ask any questions, okay? We need to ask questions. We will be working in Ahmedabad. I showed you on the larger map. This is the Ahmedabad town, probably on this side, there's a big river that cuts across this place. I'm going to have a module on religious studies. We're going to have 3 discussions here in November, because that will be very, very important to kind of understand this place in some ways. So we pick and choose. We cannot learn everything about this place. Because this river, you might also see, it divides the Muslims and the Hindus in some ways, right? Rivers don't divide. People use rivers to divide themselves, right? So this is where the people comes into play, right? So the school is on this side of the river. The downtown is on the other side of the river, where that's where the large Muslim community works, and it's also a volatile place. Muslim-Hindu struggles happen, and this is the airport. And the community that we are working on is kind of on the other side of the airport. So this is the school. So this is kind of a little bit of a long ride, actually, to that side. So this is a closer view of the airport. I think our site is on this side. So the people here, I'm going to show you some images here. Yeah, this was my first visit, maybe. Yeah. So this is the person that I came to know. His name is Dakshin. I mean, he's as I told you, this neighborhood. The people who live in this neighborhood are called charas. Charas were kind of like, once upon a time, they were like what do you call them? Gypsies. And then the Brits, like within their idea of evolution, like, I mean, people moving around is a bad idea. People become settled, then they are more developed. They settle them, but these people who don't have a culture of settlement, they couldn't just settle, so they had to encamp them, put them in a camp. And then when they were moving around, they used to do dancing and sort of like theater, and they were also asked to stop. Now this is almost like the Native American story, like, I mean, they also do this, they were also kind of like, put in, what do you call, reservations. And then, of course, we know the story, they started drinking and all these things. So these guys also, they used alcohol. Alcohol was a part of their culture. Like when somebody gets married, you have to feed the Mother Earth with alcohol, and that kind of stuff. So what do you do when you don't do any of these things? You just drink, right? So they kind of like got really, really wasted. So in the recent times, they got really, there was a cultural revival, and now they are trying to revive their arts traditions. I mean, what we call arts now, they probably didn't call arts because that's what they did, and so Dakshin is right now is doing a master's in theater in the Netherlands, and he's the one who introduced me to this place. Actually, it's funny. I was just going to show you. Oh, so this is Dakshin. Where is this? Okay. Yeah. So these are kind of like, I walked in the neighborhood. This is what it looks like. You can see, it's not like a poor neighborhood. I mean, they are building stuff, but then again, I mean, it's not very well organized. What happened was when they were released, finally, after 10 years after independence, they didn't know where to go because, I mean, if you lived for generations in a camp, like where would you go if you're released? So the government gave land right next to it, So it's there are a lot of families. It's kind of like very high density. You can see they're building. They're probably getting a lot of money. I don't know the exact story. So then we were also thinking. I was also thinking like maybe if their cultural revival is kind of like through theater and arts, maybe what we can do is to kind of like, maybe we can help them to kind of like develop that. Maybe we can build a little amphitheater. But it seems like when I went there, like, oh man, they have a place. So I don't know what, yeah, this one. Not the most neatest of places, but yeah, amazing place. And the temple on the right-hand side. Some roads are not paved. Sometimes showers and so on the right in front. Some old houses, some new houses, some, and of course this is the main road. This is the main road. Yeah. This is the little library that they have created. So I told you about this cultural revival. So they have a library and they have a theater company, theater group. No, let me go to another one. So I'm going to give you some images. Okay. So this is when I went with the dean of the school. On the left-hand side is the dean of the SEPT, and on the right-hand side, this guy is actually a newspaper reporter for India Times. So I mean, there are kind of like educated people as well. This is the library. They moved it to a new place. So sometimes, like, I mean, you can see a lot of garbage on one side because I think there's no drainage here, basically.
So the government doesn't, like, I guess, they supply water and I guess electricity, but they don't do.
Water and electricity, nobody supplies unless you buy them. But government, government has provided water. Like you can see, there are toilets and so on here. You probably, why they're here is probably also because the government provided, and they build them in front or something. I mean, these are stories that we need to learn. Why are they there? Yeah. So it's good to have questions. I don't know the answers to all the questions. Very important to look at these things and have a set of questions that we can follow. Right.
I guess they don't have a sweeper going down the streets.
So this is interesting. This is the camp area that they used to be. Let me see. This the Social Defense Department. These days, that's where they put the beggars. When they catch beggars, they put them there. And so this is the school that Dakshin's father went to when he was living in the camp. This was the school. So this is right opposite this settlement is that. Yeah, this is the theater called Budin Theater. Budin is Budan Theater. Budan was somebody who was killed, like a tribal person who was killed. And this lady, this lady and also Mother Teresa, I mean, these are kind of like the inspirations for these guys. This is in that library space. So the big idea for us is kind of like that's all the images are. So the bigger question for us is kind of like I don't even want to kind of like this is a planning project, right? Planning to learn, but I don't want to set any parameters here. What do we do with these people? Okay. Good. Do you think if we do a good planning project? I mean, first of all, the planners believe, you can call planners and designers, I'm using this because it's a planning to learn project, believe that, we need to transform this particular place. Do you think the planner also should transform?
Sure.
Why should the planner transform? Yeah. Right. Otherwise, you'll be stuck there, huh? Yeah. Very good.
My mother always told me, how you got in there is how you get out.
I think we have to. I think we have to get your mother and Einstein to have a little debate about this, huh?
Sure.
What kind of thoughts do you have about this project? We won't have good thoughts until we get there. But the whole point is kind of like we need to learn. I think we need to build some new. We want to have some good questions, right? For a few weeks, we won't have anything. You'll be going there periodically, right? I don't even know whether 20 people can go there in one go because without being noticed, that there's an invasion. We might even have to develop some strategies. It's not going to be 20, right? 20 working with another 20 Indian students will be 40, right? So if Indian students are not so visible, which you think they are, but they will be, among Indian people, they can recognize different Indian people, right? Although they don't look very different, they will say, oh, this is a Chara, this is a Muslim, this is whatever, right? So they will know. They will know when outsiders come there, right? So we might even have to have strategies. But we need to begin to understand who these people are. What do they want? What are their aspirations? Where do they want to go? Is there a role for us to play? If there's a role for us to play, what should we? maybe this is a planning to learn project in which we are going to build something, right? Is it possible?
It's
Yeah.
relatively open-ended, right? I mean, does the SEP have an idea of what they want to do there?
It's interesting. When I went with Utpal, couple of things. Utpal is the dean. When he first said he knows this place, right? I just told him that we need to go to this place. He said he knows this place, and we were going and we were going and going and going and going. We were lost, and several times. And I understand people get lost. People get lost usually, but this is a different kind of a lost, because he didn't know the place. He knew the rough area. I was just having fun with him. I said, after everything, I said, next time when I come, I'll take you to another place that you haven't seen in this city, because this is a planning school. They are not interested. They don't work with these guys. Charas. Nobody in that planning school knows charas, right? They know these big issues. What is India? India is about the Hindus and the Muslims, right? They fight. The problem with dualities is once you get into this dualistic thinking, you lose everything else. Now charas, just to give you how different these people are, Hindus usually don't eat meat. If they eat meat, they don't eat beef, because this Nandi is the god, the cow god. You can see all sorts of cows in Indian cities. Nobody hurts them and so on, right? There are some people who eat, but then the Muslims eat beef, right? But they don't eat pork. But the charas eat both, right? And then Gujarat is a dry state. Charas have liquor, right? So the thing is, all of a sudden, you can see, all these ideas, all these constructions, all these ways in which we understand India is all challenged and questioned. And then you see a tribe. What is a tribe? You go there and see, the guy is going to do a master's in in Amsterdam. This is a tribal guy, going to. So a lot of ideas are kind of like questioned. And then then we go there. The first thing, what the dean says, my friend, he says, oh, these guys need water and sanitary facilities. I think you are a typical planner, you go there and you see what they need, you're trying to now provide them. It's good that he's working on that, so it'll be a part of our project. So I don't have a problem in providing some good things to them. But the thing is, I think what we really don't know is we know them in that mechanical sense, they need water, they need electricity, they need a house. But do we know them? Can we know them? So I think that's the big question that I'm posing for you. So it's good. I'm glad if our project is going to provide water and electricity. Why not? I don't have a problem with that. He's going to even find money from Jawaharlal Nehru Foundation. But the issue for me is that's what he sees. He doesn't see these people for people.
Right.
He probably will see at the end of the project, right? What? Any thoughts? Any questions? Is it exciting or is it dull?
Right? You have on a plane per hour.
How many drinks?
I looked it up last time. It was 2 drinks every 4 hours.
Sri Lankan gives free drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about the
free
plane
drinks.
ride.
Yeah, like Sri Lankan Airlines.
Gives free drinks. You can get drunk.
No limit?
No limit.
I just want to go to sleep. That's all. That's my whole motive is to go to sleep.
But the thing is, by the time you get on the Sri Lankan airline, you will be fast asleep, because it'll be a long ride from here
Right,
to
and then you wake up and you're
to
still
Heathrow.
on the plane.
Huh?
You wake up and you're still there. You wake up and you're still there.
You may wake up and everybody else might be gone.
That wouldn't do me like that. No. Yes.
No, it is really exciting.
I'm excited.
But you will go. I think you will see as Hikoyat kind of like talked about. Hikoyat worked in a settlement of 34 families. 34.
Yeah.
Something like that, 31, 34 families, and she, eventually we started seeing, like this is not working with people doesn't mean that the people are the greatest, people are the kings. They have their own fights, right? I mean, they have their own groups. I mean, when you go to Charanagar, you will see, like just because we are going to say, like we need to understand people, we need to see who they are and all these things. That doesn't mean that, like. Of course, you shouldn't get into trouble. Like I mean, there are little corners where they sell alcohol. I mean, you will see kind of like it could be a kind of like a real weird place as well. But then the issue is kind of like how, so we don't want to homogenize. Say like this is it. So we want to see the diversity, but we cannot see the diversity until we enter. Right? So for now, it's Charanagar. Just one.
It was a very epic statement of you. Very epic, not epic.
Okay. But we want to develop an ethic view. But we are outsiders though.
Right.
Regardless of, even if we live there for 100 years, we will still be outsiders.
Oh.
Well, thank you. And next, we'll continue this discussion next Thursday. And please send whatever you are supposed to send.
Adios.
See you. Adios.